Hi, Eric Redbeard here, letting you know that Pro Wrestling Valier, Classic Championship Wrestling, and Seven Mountains Wrestling are uniting. Coming to the York Revolution Stadium, May 20th, 2023. See you there.
Fucking mics.
Hello there. How are you guys doing?
All right. Welcome to Three Beards of Wrestling. Your host, Shane, Ricky Ortiz, the Mind of Mayhem, Corey Cross, and Sexual Chocolate, Malcolm King.
I'll be whatever you want.
All right. Before we bring our guest on, we're going to go over all the shows coming up. We got this weekend, we have CCW and Marysville Lions Club. Bell time, 5 p.m. Next month, we got Seven Mountains Wrestling at MR Stacks Fitness Center. And we have February 25th in New Jersey, EWA. And remember, the month of March, Four Notches will be giving free tryouts. So if you want to become a professional wrestler, hit us up and get your spot. And then February 25th again, 2 to 4, the Mark Mess seminar. You do not want to miss. It's $10. Hit us up if you want to get in, and we'll get you guys a spot reserved. Does anyone got anything before we bring our guest on?
Excited.
I think we're good. I've been looking forward to this one.
Ricky, you good? Are you good? You just came back on, so.
Yes, sir. I am.
All right.
Okay. Amazing, man.
All right. All right, so let's bring on our guest, J Money.
Hey, that may be how you refer to it. That boy looking clean.
J Money, how you doing tonight?
Your mic's muted.
My mic's not.
I'm good.
No, it's Mr. Money. Mike's muted.
Oh, well, I don't know where he went, so we're just going to talk until we get him back on.
So who are y'all rooting for in the Royal Rumble?
All right, J Money is back.
Well,
You all good now?
I'm all good.
All right. So how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. It's been a busy day. Ready for the Raw 30th tonight. That should be entertaining.
Can't wait. All right. So I guess we'll just jump right into it.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. I'll start off. What made you want to become a professional wrestler?
I don't know, because I think the wrestling has been in me for as long as I can remember. My first memories are probably of Hogan and Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper. So I can't really pinpoint a time when maybe I didn't want to be a wrestler. There was probably a time when I thought maybe I don't want to fight people every single night like Hulk Hogan does or like, Roddy Piper does. But once I kind of figured out, how wrestling works, I was all in, wanted to be a part of it.
All right. Well, that's actually crazy to think about. You were sitting there watching wrestling like back then. I didn't even think that you were that much older, honestly. One of my questions that I have for you, sir, is that if you had to choose a dream match, what would be your dream match?
My dream match?
Yes, sir.
I don't know. I think it's different, throughout all parts of my career. I mean, early on, I think Mr. Perfect was kind of running around the indies for a little bit. And that was something that I wanted to be around at one point. But I don't know what would be a dream match. I can't really pinpoint one person, but that's somebody that sticks out. I mean, obviously Bret Hart would be a dream match as well. I think of the guys that have a little bit more realism to what they do. Not necessarily guys that are, spotty and, want to do a backflip off a 40-foot cage or anything like that. More of, just realistic old school wrestling.
I can't think of it. Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart. They're both two amazing wrestlers. I can't think of anybody. Oh, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it'd be easier to work with them too. I don't think it would be a difficult night. And in many ways, I feel like it would be what some of the wrestlers call a night off because they're just so good.
Sure.
Corey?
Okay. With that being said, Money. First off, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Where does J Money come from? Where does J Money draw inspiration inside the ring? Who did he tape study, if you will?
Brainbusters, Heart Foundation, Rockers, especially like leading up to the 80s team stuff. I mean, I would watch, tons of Brainbusters stuff, tons of the Rockers, Rock Roll Express, even as well, and Midnight Express. I would say just tag team wrestling in general, anything that adds a little bit more realism to things instead of just blatantly doing something, having it mean something or having it happen incidentally and then acting upon that advantage.
Yeah, because I noticed you said the Rockers. I came in towards that part of your career with Petey as that 80s team, and I could definitely see the influence there, and that was really awesome.
Yeah, there's some Rockers there. There was some even Hulk Hogan there too. Just anything that really was kind of popular in the 80s style wrestling. And, I would go back to Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect. I mean, those are guys that I look for as a single competitor and also with Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation as a tag team competitor. But those two guys still kind of stuck out, my whole career. I feel like nowadays everybody's inspired by Shawn Michaels. And I think I was to a point. But I feel like if you go to most shows today, everybody's trying to be Shawn Michaels.
Right.
So I like to look for the guys that are trying to be those, the Arn Andersons and the Tully Blanchards, that kind of thing. FTR is probably one of my favorites to watch now.
I agree with you on that one. They are solid. Their double dog collar with the Briscoes is still one of my favorite matches of modern day.
Yeah.
So we got a question from one of the people watching on my YouTube channel. Who do you think is going to win the Rumble?
Cody.
I just said,
yeah. If he doesn't, what's the point of all this build-up?
Yeah.
right? True. All right, here's a good humdinger for you. Now, you've been J Money for a very long time. What was the most awesome moment that happened in your career?
I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it probably goes back to Bret Hart. I come to a show, wanted to work this show in Lancaster because Bret Hart was going to be there. Put in some time, working out at their training center for a little bit to try to get, more notice. Eventually we got the booking, got there, heard Bret Hart didn't want to talk to anybody, heard he was, not the most pleasant to be around at the time. So I figured at that point, we wouldn't even talk to him that day. But we wanted to do our match. After our match, he came up to me, just walked across the locker room and like stuck out his hand, shook my hand and said, "It's great to see old school tag team wrestling like back in the day." And I was like, "Oh man, like you're telling me, like,
Yeah.
experience." So I think that was like very validating to a point that somebody that you probably inspired you to get involved in this, thought you were good enough to, walk up to and shake your hand, especially if they're not having the best day. So I think that was probably, it was a backstage career highlight, I would say. In the ring, I'm not sure. Like, I think sometimes we take for granted like some things that may have been spectacular from people looking from the outside, and maybe at the time it wasn't for us, just because we were trying to, play it cool or not be a mark or whatever it was. But I can't really think of anything that sticks out, but I might come back to that just as we go. Might trigger something in my brain.
Okay.
My next question is, I mean, if you had to give any advice to somebody that wanted to wrestle or people that are new into the business, what would it be?
I would say find a good training center, get fully trained, and then once you're, to the point where you can work a decent match and, everybody can rely on you, I would say start trying to travel, get yourself out there more. That's the big thing. If you notice, a lot of the guys that are places today were guys, like that were traveling all around the country, on their own dime just to be seen everywhere. And I still see that today with, some of the independent guys too. You just see them on every show, and there's no way a promoter's paying them enough to travel themselves or travel and get them there, and they're not having to, fish out some of their own money. I think they almost have to think of it as college in a way. In college sports, you're going to pay for it to learn it and to perfect it. But if you work hard enough, it'll pay off.
All
I
right.
would get your face out there as many places as possible, as many reputable places as possible, say.
All right, go ahead, Ricky.
Yes, sir. So right now, of all, I'm going to sit there and say, who's your top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time?
Oh, Randy Savage is one of them. And the odd thing about Randy Savage is I didn't really appreciate him until I was an adult in the wrestling business.
Yes.
I would say Randy Savage is there. Shane Douglas is there. Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect. I think you'd almost have to put Hogan in there too, just because he did catch my eye to begin with. I probably wouldn't have done it had I not seen him at one point. Even though I don't like some of the things that he's done recently in his life, you still have to, respect what he kind of did for wrestling.
Rory?
You said about training and getting your face out there anywhere you can and going to any reputable school you can. Where did J Money get his start?
I started at some place in kind of a startup wrestling school that wasn't the greatest. Ended up getting injured there a lot. Wasn't taught psychology. Wasn't really taught the respect side of either until I crossed the boundaries sometimes. So that would come back to backfire on me sometimes. But eventually I left there and found Rob, and Rob had reached out to me, Rob Noxious, and asked me how things were going with that place I was training at. I said, I'm done with them. I might even be done with the business because I don't trust people anymore. And he had said, starting up, school and, come out, help me set up the ring. Maybe we can train a little bit. And that's kind of where we went from there. I mean, eventually we were training, 3 times a week. Friday nights, we'd have, people from other schools come in and train with us as well. So we get like different, people from Mark's school, from Rob's school. Sometimes we go to Mark's school and they come down to us. And it just was a great experience because you could learn so many different styles from people. And it's almost like you looked forward to it, but it was going to be hard work. Like, especially like guys like Jason Havoc, he would just push you to the limit on chain wrestling. To the point that you're almost exhausted, like you're doing cardio, but you're just doing chain wrestling. Like he just was so big on that, and you had to work harder. Even when I was wrestling him, I had to work harder than what I had to do elsewhere because he knew I could. So I think the question was training wise. Yeah, that's kind of the places I've been. I would say I've also done some seminars with different wrestling companies like TNA or Ring of Honor. But that was more or less you learning kind of how to develop character, learning how to develop, not necessarily your character as a personality, but even the way you wrestle in the ring. That kind of they can touch on a little bit more.
Sure.
Oh, Jamal?
So basically, You've done a lot in wrestling. What can you say that you've done that no one else has done the way J Money does it?
There were a few moves that I did that nobody else did. Especially early on, I was all about trying to find moves that nobody else had done yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think to this day, there's still a few that people haven't done. I used to do a move where somebody would toss me into the corner. I jump up on the second rope and I leapfrog backwards over top of them into like the execution back bump. It was one thing that I could only pull off with a few people. Like I wouldn't do it with everybody. I would do it with Rob all the time. I would do it with Fumar, I believe, too. I don't think there was many others that I did it with, though, because it's such a timing thing that it's very easy to mess it up. I believe Candice Michelle tried to steal it at one point when she was wrestling, and she would do it where she would land on her feet first and then do the move, because it was very like you had to be right on the time, because it was like you're leapfrogging back, and as you're leapfrogging back, you're landing on your rear with the guy's head between your legs. So that was one, and I came up the roof that was kind of like a reverse of what John Cena would do. He would pick up the guy, like a back body suplex, and then twist him in midair onto the back. It's a very common move. A lot of people do it. But what I did is I decided to do it from a Northern Lights position. So I'd start them out and give them a Northern Lights suplex, and then turn them around on their face. I found a lot of guys couldn't take it, or they'd hold on to my head too long, and that's probably why I got neck problems. But they would just not release from the neck hold sometimes, and it would just get messed up. So I kind of stopped doing it. But I believe those two things, I don't think anybody has done, to this day. I know Ruckus used to threaten me that he was going to steal some stuff back in the day from me. Fancy move list. And I was like, please leave me with that stuff, man. Like, you have so much. Just leave me with that.
That's cool. I used to watch the videos of you, Rob, Star, all you guys, man. Like, and it was like your stuff always stuck out. Like, I always loved watching you wrestle. Always.
The original guys, like in CCW, like we were, younger. I mean, I was the youngest probably out of all, but some of the older guys, they were men. You wouldn't want to mess with them. Like, if you wouldn't want to jump in the ring with these guys if you were a fan. So that kind of stuck out. I think that made us different from some of the other indies that were out there, using, having smaller guys sometimes. I was a smaller guy in the beginning until I got bigger. But I think people liked my wrestling, at least to that extent. I always feel like the original, like, CCW group, we all had, like Rob was our Taz, and, Zar was our Sandman, and I was the Douglas, like kind of that stuff. Like, that's kind of stuff that we, would joke about. But we would, we really try to just put on the best show. And, we would be upset with ourselves if we didn't. Like, I can remember the first CCW show, I tried to hit the move I was just talking about, where I jump up in the corner, and I missed it. And Rob caught me in time, and, just, gave me like a suplex out of it. Like, he knew just to pick up and keep going. And I, took his finisher, and when I took it, like, I took it on the back of my head, because I felt like I owed him that, because I messed up that move so bad, almost like a punishment to myself, which is horrible to do, nowadays. But when looking back, but that's how seriously we took it. We didn't want to put on a bad show. We didn't want to make anything look, unreal. We didn't want to, dissatisfy the fans.
Kevin the Saint.
Yeah, Kevin the Saint. He's sometimes too.
All right. What do you think professional wrestling needs today? Like, pretty much like more on the indie scene.
On the indie scenes, I don't know. I think maybe. I think the indies might benefit from being treated like the NWA was back in the day, like almost like a regulated, national presence that could work with some of the top independent promotions to bring in, some of the bigger stars of the country to help build out. Because I mean, at this point, indie wrestling is hitting a boom. Kind of like the territories leading up to WWF did. So I think maybe it's time that they try to kind of work together more. I mean, look at what's going on around here with Seven Mountains, CCW, Valor, like just them working together has put on better shows for bigger crowds. I mean, 1,000 people we drew in Lancaster, like that's unheard of for the most recent times. So just kind of working together a little bit more, I think would be best. I think there also has to be a variety of guys on each show too. Like you can't have the same guys wrestling on every single promotion show. Like it's just what makes them want to go to one or the other, as opposed to, if I saw that guy, last night, to want to see him again. Maybe they, but sometimes I think that happens too much too, where it's just like, okay, well, it's just the same show everywhere you go sometimes. I don't know if that happens as much nowadays. I know it used to happen, a couple of years ago. I was part of that problem because I wrestled everywhere.
Oh man, amazing. So one of the questions I have is actually as far as like psychology. I wanted to know who was like the top 3 people that you would definitely watch like to learn like psychology.
The number one would be Jake the Snake Roberts. I would say Macho Man too. Like I said, I didn't respect Macho Man like I do now until I became a wrestler and started, seeing some of the little things that he would do. Like especially with Elizabeth, like he would work up to certain things, like trying to get hated the way he treated Miss Elizabeth, and he didn't do the worst thing until he knew he wasn't going to work with her anymore. WrestleMania 5, I think he shoved her at one point. Like that was the worst thing that he ever did. And he knew that was something that he couldn't do any more of. So let's do it. While I'm this is the last time we're going to be together, or last time I have a chance to do it. So things like that, like I respect just the way he worked up to that. Bret Hart, I think, was good psychology too. Like he just, every match that you've seen from Bret Hart, it may be the same stuff sometimes, but nothing, everything made sense. Like there wasn't any wasted motion with him. He would go to work on the leg. That's the one thing I used to ask the guys all the time. I ask them what their finish is when I go to wrestling schools, and I'd be like, well, why isn't your offense leading up to making that finish work? If you're doing a move where you drop somebody on the back of their head or neck, like why aren't you working the neck throughout the match? Or if you're doing a move where you take out the leg, why aren't you working the leg throughout the match? Like little stuff like that. Even my heel side of me back when I was heel singles was always figure 4, work the leg. Once I found out that that's not going to make this guy submit, then I move on to the other finish. But I would try at least to get him to submit with a figure 4 at some point, work up to that, or sharpshooter, different stuff like that. But yeah, I would say, Macho Man, Bret Hart, Jake Roberts, they kind of stick out to me on the psychology side.
So you would work the leg a lot when you were a heel to work a body part, right?
Yeah, I worked the leg as a heel, arm as a face more, because the arm would be worked in the shine. Like you can grab an arm quickly. You can't grab the leg like right from the start and have control of it. The leg's like stronger than any other muscle in your body, next to your back, of course. You can't grab somebody's leg fresh and start going to town on it. You got to work up to it.
That's like, I love watching wrestling that makes a lot of sense, because if it doesn't make sense, then why are you doing it? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it doesn't make sense, why are you doing it? But at the same time, it makes you question, what are you watching, and who are you watching, because of the product that you watch. Just because it's wrestling doesn't mean it's always good wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I used to, kind of like any NXT back in the day. I can see they're using a lot of guys that are very fresh, very, very green. Some of the things that they do sometimes I question, so I can't watch a lot of it sometimes. And it's not their fault, that they don't have those years of experience trying different things. And that's, really what the indies are for, trying different stuff and learning. And, they're dragging their own bodies across the ring to get closer for a jump when you could just be selling your stomach and roll. Like why are they making things difficult?
Yeah.
I get it. They're young. I did stupid stuff when I started out too. But just little things like that, will turn a fan away. Like I'm not interested in that match anymore. And I know that how everything works, so if I'm not interested and I know how everything works, I can only imagine how somebody would be that, doesn't know how everything works.
Who in wrestling at the moment, other than Roman Reigns, is in a good angle?
Well, I think you got to look at the entertainment side of wrestling too. Sami Zayn and the Bloodline is very entertaining. It actually got me watching WWE more again.
Yeah.
Because really, I would not watch Raw much or would not watch SmackDown at all. But as soon as I started seeing some like little clips of what they're doing and how Sammy's playing that out, it just clicked. It's entertaining. It's something different for once. It's not the normal. Hey, this guy's in power. I'm going to try to take him out, and I'm going to kick your rear and all this stuff. It's entertaining. Like you almost see it as like an Eastbound and Down Stevie Janowski. If you're familiar with Eastbound and Down, with Sami Zayn. And if you're not familiar with Eastbound and Down, you got to watch it. At least the first season, so you kind of see what Stevie Janowski is like. He's just a guy that worships, Kenny Powers, and Eastbound and Down. He's a former baseball player, comes back to town, becomes a substitute gym teacher because he, pretty much wasted his whole baseball life away. And Stevie Janowski knew him in school, worshipped him throughout the whole thing, and now he's like, there's nothing that he can do wrong. So he's always into him. But the Bloodline thing makes it a little bit more interesting because they're going after his best friend too. But sometimes I feel like they insult your intelligence, like you didn't know that they had a Ring of Honor ladder match that they almost killed each other in, or matches already in WWE. But it is what it is. So entertaining.
Corey?
You were talking about worshiping and looking up to people and things like that. How do you feel knowing there's guys that looked up to you that are on the big stage right now?
I've never talked with them personally about it. Like I've heard it from other people. So sometimes I still don't believe it, but then again, I kind of do. So there was things that I was told that I didn't believe, and then I find out later on that person comes to one of the shows even after he's in WWE to check it out. So I start to believe it a little bit more. But yeah, I had no idea until probably the last couple of years of wrestling. People that I inspired, and who knows, there could be more. There could be more that you guys are inspiring. At one point, because everybody has to start somewhere, and everybody, most of the people that come to these indie shows, if anybody in the area is going to become professional wrestlers, it's going to be those fans, those little kids that are out there. So yeah, I don't know if they worship me, but I think maybe some of the things that I did maybe made them believe that they could do it as well, or maybe made them want to do it as well.
Yeah, I was at a Triple WA show, and I can't remember her name, but like she works for SWO, and she was telling me that like the match I had, she was like, then she knew that she wanted to be a wrestler, and it was like pretty cool. But I was, me, I played it cool. It was like, that's really nice. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you like my matches. And she was just like, made me feel like I was like a little kid in the candy shop. Oh my God, she loves me. Like it was cool. So I get what you're saying 100%.
Yeah, I think sometimes we take that for granted because sometimes we don't think it's a big deal, or we let our ego take over and say, well, this is just this is just what happens. It's just what I do. But being away from things now for, like 5 years now, like fully away, I come back part-time for a little bit here and there. But being away from it so long, you kind of look back and you're like, man, I really took different things for granted. Like just opportunities to talk to certain people, like legends and things. And just because you're trying to play it cool or whatever. and even fans, like I said, fans, you want to appreciate that. Like you don't know what you could be doing to that person. That person, you taking time to talk to that person could have kept them from, harming themselves, at one point, or inspire them to get out of a bad situation. Like just, you can't take, that for granted. You gotta act on that, respond to it.
All right. I got a question, and we'll take like a little bit of a break and go over the shows and everything. If you had to change one thing in your career, what would it be?
I would say I would probably have either come up with or stuck with one character and really develop that character. Because I feel like I jump back and forth a lot between different characters to the point that sometimes I didn't even feel like I had a character or anything, which, isn't a huge deal sometimes, but it is when you know that you can develop that wrestling style around that character and you can just, help develop it. Like I feel like I was master of none, kind of in a way, like because I just tried too much different stuff. So I never got to the point where I could just master one thing and just be that character. I mean, the closest I probably got to was the 80s team.
Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna play the commercial, everything, and then when we come back on, we'll go over the shows, and then we'll get right back into it.
Hi, Eric Redbeard here, letting you know that Pro Wrestling Valier, Classic Championship Wrestling, and Seven Mountains Wrestling are uniting. Coming to the York Revolution Stadium, May 20th, 2023. See you
there. All right, guys. Just so you guys know, remember, this weekend, Marysville Lions Club, CCW will be having a show, bell time 5 p.m. Next month, February 11th, at Mark Stack's Gym. Jamal, what's your bell time?
4 o'clock. 5 o'clock. 4 o'clock.
5 o'clock bell time.
4 or 5 o'clock bell time.
And then EWA in Camden, New Jersey. And then remember, the month of March, Fort Knox will be giving free tryouts the whole entire month. So hit us up and reserve a spot. And then Mark Mess Seminar, February 25th, 2 to 4 p.m., just $10. If you want to do it, hit us up, and then we'll get your spot. Before we go back into it, our guest for Monday will be Piranha from SWO. So make sure you guys tune in on Monday. So let's jump back into J Money. Ricky, you want to start off?
Yeah, man. Just knowing how much that you have inspired people, I want to definitely know who is somebody that you definitely idolized growing up, or definitely, how can I say, you idolize your in-ring abilities after.
I would say there's probably a mix of going back to Mr. Perfect and Flair and Bret Hart. There was I think when I was a heel in the ring, I was kind of more like a Ric Flair style on the microphone, a Shane Douglas. I really kind of looked at him at promos early on. Even the black and gold that I used to wear, like it was kind of a throwback to him in the ECW days. Just even a lot of my promos, and even it kind of hurt me sometimes because I would kind of shoot a little bit when I shouldn't have on certain things because that's what Shane Douglas used to do. I've never met harm by it, but that was certain things that Shane Douglas would do. Call out people from other promotions, and I just I kind of felt like it's something that caught my attention, so I figured it would catch other people's attention too.
So, Corey?
All right. All the stories we all have, the good, the bad, with our careers. Without naming names, what's one of your favorite road stories?
Road stories.
Mm-hmm.
If it's about me, every last one of you live.
I don't know. I think one that sticks out to me, we were on our way to Pittsburgh. We had rented a van. It was a group of us going out to wrestle for this new promotion. And on the way there, there was a guy that knew me for years. Like we were friends. I've stayed at his house. Like we were pretty close. And when we started talking about my real name, he had no clue that my real name was Nate Blazer. And he was like, "There's no way that's your real name. Like, why would you not use that as a wrestling name if that's your real name? Like, there's no way." I was like, "How much you want to bet, man?" Like, he was like willing to bet money that wasn't my name. And then I rip out my ID and show it to him, and he's like, "Dude, are you serious?" Because he would always just call me Joseph Money. Like that was my name to him. He would call me Joseph Money. And he was always funny to hang out with. I miss hanging out with him even to this day so much because he was just hilarious. He would talk about how big of a star I am and how I'm not sleeping on the floor tonight. I'm gonna sleep on a couch. I get the good chair kind of thing, the big piece of chicken, all that stuff. So it was always funny being around him. But yeah, he just had no clue that my real name was that for I think like 7 years that we were friends.
It's great.
To be fair, he had like 3 different names too. So
Oh yeah.
All right. Jamal?
So I never understood why you never used your name, but
I did one time.
did you?
I did in Rome, Georgia. I actually wrestled under my own name and teamed with J Money and a guy that they posed off as Pete because Pete didn't make the show. So it was myself as Nate Blazer teaming with that 80s team because we had to fill in some people for the show, and they already wrote the show and they didn't want to rewrite it, so they just went with it.
Okay.
But yeah, one time that was it. One time, I should have used it more, but I just felt like it sounded more gimmicky than the Money name did. Blazer just sounds like very, I don't know, redneckish gimmicky in a way. Like back in the, like I'm going to be on the UWF on ESPN or something.
So, what promotions did you like better, UWF?
Watching them?
Yeah, watching them. UWF or USWA? Which one did you prefer to watch?
I don't know if I really watched USWA. I watched a lot of global wrestling that was on ESPN every day. And I believe they even had some world class on there too, because Divine Eric's run a lot too. So I would watch that, almost every day after school. I mean, obviously WWF was, the main company that I would watch. And then I'd get into WCW a little bit later, as more guys started going over there. But I was never really I had a friend at lunch he would be talking about WCW stuff. He would never watch WWF, and like I thought that was the weirdest thing. It's like, why wouldn't you watch WWF if you're a WCW fan? Like, just it's weird. Like, you're not gonna follow some wrestlers that go to different companies. Like, he was just so anti WWF.
Because WCW rocked.
It did. It seemed like more of a sport, I would say, up until about like the 1999, 1998, late 1998 for WWF. WWF was pretty hokey in the beginning of the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
I was even thinking the other day, like I've heard rumors that, before they went with Bret Hart as champion, they were possibly thinking of Crush. And I'm like, okay, well, if they would have went Crush would have probably reigned like Hogan did. Nobody else got the belt. Then Diesel doesn't become, as famous. Razor Ramon doesn't become as famous. And then you don't have the NWO and the Monday Night Wars when they jump. So wrestling could still be that hokey thing had it not been for, them choosing to move the belt around so much with like Bret Hart and Yoko and Diesel and all of that.
True. But WCW rocked.
It did once they got, some things together. I felt like sometimes it did feel second rate. And that was probably only because most of the TV they did was like in smaller venues until Bischoff kind of changed that a little bit.
I say late 93 up until 99. It was a better product.
Yeah, I would say so. Looking back on some of the matches. I just like WWF though, just because that's what I grew up on. But yeah, if you think of all the gimmicks, I mean, the Max Moon, even though I love that, I think it's a flashy little gimmick, but how are we going to leave a spaceman just came down to wrestle, every Saturday morning for you. So that kind of stuff got a little far-fetched.
So my next question is, are we going to see J Money in the ring again?
I don't know. I feel like what I left last match was kind of okay. And I don't know. I always am fearful that the next experience may not be as good. And then I'll want to do it again. And because the second to last experience was not good for me. Like I was so out of shape. I was having some, medical issues and just, I felt like crap. Like just literally felt like crap. Like it was such a concern. Like people were taking me outside after that match. Like they thought I was, hyperventilating or whatever. So I just wasn't ready. But, last match I actually, worked with personal trainers and got myself in decent condition and was able to do a lot more. And I told myself that last match, with you, I just said, I'm just going to do everything, that I would do normally. Like, I'm not going to put any restrictions on myself other than, I'm not going to jump off the top rope or anything, but I'm not putting any restrictions on any kind of bumping or anything like that. And to be honest, I woke up the next day and like, I felt better than I did after other matches. Like, so it makes me wonder, like, how long was my neck really a problem for me? Because I used to wake up after matches when I was an active wrestler, and my head would just be so heavy. Like my neck would hurt, my shoulders would hurt. But yeah, like that was like a kind of like I feel like I bumped more in that match than I did probably most of the matches in 2015. So 2016. It felt good. Well, so
definitely a fun match.
What's that?
I said it was definitely a fun match.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know. I think if it was a good storyline, if it was something that I, bucket list thing, maybe I would do something. I just, like I said, I don't want it the last experience to be bad, and I also don't want to push myself too much that I end up hurt again too. Plus, I'm getting old. I'm 40 years old. I may not look that old in the face.
Damn. I'm sorry.
So there's not much more that I'm going to accomplish, I think, than what I already did, unfortunately. So.
There was something in my background. Oh, was that? Oh man.
Ricky?
I definitely just want to for the everybody that is a little bit newer, then they wanted to get their promo skills together. Who is the top three? Who would your top three be to try to help people develop promo skills?
Arn Anderson, Jake Roberts, and I would say Macho Man too. Like they just did things differently. Like they weren't necessarily catchphrase guys and all that stuff. Like I literally tried to not be a catchphrase guy with promos. You know, it's like everybody has a catchphrase. You know, whereas The Rock had like all of his stuff was catchphrase, and it sometimes didn't have much substance. You know, it was good. It was almost like one of those songs that has the chorus most of the way through. People remember it. They were, you know, can respond to it. They get into it. But I think some of the promos that aren't, you know, very flashy, just guys talking, even the early Steve Austin ECW stuff. You look back at some of that stuff too. Like that's just good promos. And Shane Douglas, as I said earlier, as a heel, I would say he's better at the live promos. I always thought live promos and like pre-recorded promos were kind of different because I felt like I could do live promos very well, but pre-recorded stuff I couldn't do that well. Like I didn't have the same energy. I felt dumb, you know, kind of like stupid trying to do a promo in front of a wall and a camera. Like I just, I didn't necessarily understand it. Later I got better at it, but I continued to do it. Like I would just record myself in my apartment like every other day doing promos. And some of them I would post, some of them I wouldn't. If I had matches coming up, I try to do, you know, one around that. I probably do 3 or 4 takes. I did it by myself, you know, just set my camera up and just did them. I think that's what people probably got to work on is, you know, get practice with it. I mean, that was one thing that, you know, one of the seminars I did like that stuck out to them is that I could really do a good promo. And I just watched a lot of Arn Anderson leading up to that. Like just, I mean, that's kind of like the style that I did, you know, just like, it's almost like, you know, you look back to like your uncle or your dad telling you stories. Like that's the kind of thing like that Arn Anderson's kind of promos were like. They were just, you know, very, very intense, calm, but you know, you listened. So I kind of like that.
All right. Who's next?
So basically, now you don't like catchphrases, but who could you pick 2 from now and back then to have a promo battle? Who would you pick?
Today
Yes.
probably MJF and Cody. Back then, I would probably say, I mean, Jake Roberts. I mean, Ric Flair sets up there too. I mean, he had some catchy stuff too, but you know, he does stick out just because he was so over the top. But I would say I'd probably have to go with Arn Anderson and Jake Roberts. Back then.
All right.
But yeah, MJF today, Cody's that realistic promo kind of thing. You can relate to a story he's trying to accomplish what his dad didn't do, and then MJF is kind of like he seems very real. He seems like he probably is gonna get his ass kicked as soon as he walks back through the curtain. So it just seems very intense sometimes with some of the things that he says. I feel like it's all down a lot though since he became champion. I feel like he was better before he was making the money that he makes now.
He's getting paid now, so he's gotta
he's a little more careful, I would say.
Yeah. He's gotta keep it careful with it, what he say because he's getting paid a lot of money now.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mess this up.
But before that happened, it was like, man, I can't believe he just said that, but he's got a point. like that's the stuff that back. But yeah, nowadays a little bit safer, which you know, I don't necessarily blame him if he's making the money he's making now.
Yeah. I mean,
Ricky or Corey, you got anything? Any questions?
I'll give you one last one, Money. First off, cheers for being 40 because I was the old man until you showed up. Appreciate that.
You're older than him.
Not by much. I'll be 41. I'll be
just
41.
2 months ago. So
Yeah, I'll be 41 in May.
okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm
so
not.
you're
Yeah,
still
but
old.
You're still older than him.
right. We've all had advice. We've all had tips and everything from those who've come before us. If you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, what would you tell Money on the first day of wrestling school?
I would tell him not to be a prick. I would tell him to listen to everybody that he can. I would tell him to get seen by as many people as he can. Don't think everybody's out to hurt you or harm you or stab you in the back. Yeah, I would say those things. I mean, early on, I would say like the first maybe 2, 3 years, 4 years of my wrestling, I was a horrible person. Like I was very mean to certain people. I was, rude. I was very dismissive of people. Partly because that was the heel gimmick that I was doing, but I let it fall into other things sometimes. So I regret that because even to this day, there's still people that hate me like so much over it. Like, and I'm like, why do you still hate me? Like I was 18 years old, like 19 years old. So I think that's something that I regret. I feel like I was looked at as an adult when I was only like, fresh out of high school, because I was on these shows with these grown men, and here I am like 18, 19 years old, and I'm just kind of a prick because I don't know how to handle it. It didn't help, that I lost like 100 pounds like 2 years before I started wrestling too. So I was like really full of myself back then. So I would say, yeah, don't be a prick. Help people. Don't think everybody's out to get you.
Ricky?
Get seen as many people as you can.
So I just have a short little question. So how long have you been in business? How many years? Been in the business?
Since 2000. So June of 2000, I started training. Had my first match in January 2001 while I was still in high school. So like that's what I mean. Like when I was a kid, I was a kid. Like I get blamed today for the way I acted when I was 18, still in high school.
So,
but, yeah.
So
right.
that change, that was potentially your last match. You could possibly come back.
I could.
Why don't you wrestle?
It took a lot of work to do that match, though. I was seeing a chiropractor 3 times a week to get ready. I was training, hours a couple of times a week with personal trainers. It wasn't a cheap preparation, so I think that's part of it too. Like I gotta figure out next time a way to do that on my own. But yeah, I don't know. I think we'd have to see. I think tag matches are doable. Like at some point, if it makes sense. Because that's what I'm good at, and it doesn't require as much of me physically.
All right. Anything else, Jamal?
I mean, we've wrestled all over the place. We've wrestled on the same shows. It's always fun and lovely, to be on the show with you, to be doing anything with you, to learn from you. Because, man, like, you're great, and that's not blowing up your ass or anything like that. Probably shouldn't have cursed, but I'm not trying to smoke up it. But I think what I think.
Yeah,
and you
I
taught me well.
too. And I know that you respect me because I've seen the way you listen to me. You don't chop me as hard as what you might chop other people. There's a little bit more respect on your hits with me. I could see.
Yeah, and I honestly, think that like everything that happened with you when me and Chris Rush faced you and Pete at ACW, like it was great. Like it was like y'all had tag partnership, and we never tagged before, but that match we had was awesome. It was awesome. Like I still got it on my phone.
You have to send it to me.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Like it was awesome. Like it was fun. We didn't have to work too hard. We didn't have to go out there and do 20 super kicks. We told a story, and the story was told, and everybody went home happy and safe.
I mean, you got to have it realistic. Like, what's the average fight last? Like 90 seconds, you know? So if you're not gonna have time to do super flashy stuff in the amount of time the fight's going to last. And you're also not going to pick somebody up right from the start and powerbomb them. You know, it's just different stuff.
It's not realistic. You know, like if you get into a fight with someone, think about how much damage you got to do to make sure they stay down.
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't take much. It might take one punch depending on who it is.
You know, but I really appreciate you giving us this time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Oh, you're late.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, you guys are definitely late. Before we get off of here, I just put another person for Wednesday. Corey, you better have some really good questions. But so Wednesday will be Ed House on here with us. He'll be on here at 7. But yeah, remember, guys, that we have the show this weekend, Marysville Lions Club. Doors open at 4. Bell time is 5. 7 Mountains Wrestling, Mr. Stacks Gym, Lewistown. Doors open at 4. Bell time's 5. EWA in New Jersey. That's more of an early show. Actually, they have it later. It's at 4 p.m. Normally, it's at 2. The month of March, we'll be having free tryouts at our training center. And February 25th, also 2 to 4. It's only $10. Mark Mess Seminar. Don't want to miss it. A lot of information you guys will be missing if you do miss it. Jay Money, thank you for coming on here, spending some time with us.
Yeah. No, Adam, like for the show Saturday, I don't know if you noticed the bell time there, but it sounds like people were going to be able to go see the show and have plenty of time to watch the Royal Rumble afterwards. So don't let the Royal Rumble keep you from going to that show.
Definitely.
Right.
You can catch both on Saturday.
I mean, in the Royal Rumble, you can watch it later. You can't watch CCW wrestling live later.
No.
Or I mean, if you really don't want to miss it both while you're at the show, just live stream it on your phone.
Yeah, Peacock.
No, then you can watch both.
Peacock.
So. But thank you guys. It was a pretty good one today. Thank you again, Money.
Money, appreciate you, sir.
Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Sex chocolate out.
All right, guys.
Thank you.